This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, everybody. We do not currently have a quorum, but since our only action item is minutes, we will still do our two presentations and the staff update. So our first presentation should be from John Esparza, who's the Vice President of HDR, and they're working with TxDOT to do their 2024 rail plan. So John, if you're online, and actually it doesn't look like he is. We could go ahead and go to our next presentation, which would be from North Central Texas Council of Governments, and we should have, sorry, I missed the first one. Anyway, Savannah Briscoe, who's a planner with NCTCOG, their transportation department. She will provide an overview of freight optimization system. Savannah, I see that you're online.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Had a quick question. It's not letting me share the screen, and so perfect, you have it right there. That's perfect, yeah. If somebody...
Just tell me when to move to the next slide.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to take a second and thank the Central Texas Council of Governments for inviting me to speak today, for having me. I wanted to give a little bit of background into North Central Texas Council of Governments. As mentioned, my name is Savannah Briscoe, and I'm a planner on the goods movement team at NCTCOG. For this presentation, we're going to get a little bit into freight in North Central Texas. We'll talk a little bit about the goods movement program at NCTCOG. We'll talk a little bit about activities that we've been working on. We'll talk about our freight optimization system. A little bit of background in recent studies and activities that have led into that. We'll talk about current project goals and the status of the current project of this technology. And then finally, we'll lead into our projected goals for this project. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Perfect. So we'll begin by talking about freight in North Central Texas. I want to start by highlighting this map here. This is from Freight North Texas, which is an ongoing planning program that we have on the goods movement program. So I love talking about this. I love including this image in anything that we do. It's travel times from the DFW area. It really paints a big picture about how crucial freight really is for the entire United States. But when we focus in on the state of Texas, it just shows how crucial really goods movement is. I want to highlight too the Federal Highway Administration. And they've done a ton of research. They've done a ton of studies talking about what it would look like if freight essentially stopped. As you guys can see with these bullet points, they estimate within 6 to 12 hours, assembly lines would essentially come to a halt, come to a complete stop. We hit that 24 hours, hospitals begin to run out of essential supplies. 48 hours, service stations begin to run out of fuel. We hit 72 hours, grocery stores begin to run out of their perishable items. Again, I want to pinpoint, it really puts a lot of power, and it really empowers the goods movement team at NCTCOG and just shows how crucial freight really is throughout our entire region. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so some freight features within North Central Texas. Of course, I have to mention trucking. It's our primary mode of freight transportation within the DFW region, with $25.5 billion of transportation and warehousing happening in the North Texas region. Again, it really paints an ideal picture of what it looks like for freight being moved in North Central Texas. And of course, as we talked about with our previous slide, trucks can leave the region and reach much of the United States within 72 hours. Next, we'll talk about air cargo. So, of course, DFW International Airport is bringing a ton of air cargo through its facility. Oops. Oh, sorry. Yep. Was this? Oh, you can go back to the previous slide if you want to. I can touch on that as well.
Yeah, it may be a little slow on your end because I did accidentally move forward, then moved it back. So it's still showing it here.
Okay, yeah, you can keep it on this slide. That's fine. So as I was mentioning, we have DFW International Airport, but again, I also want to mention the Alliance Airport. Alliance is an exclusively air cargo airport. Between the two, with a combination of about 1 million tons of cargo moving through last year, it again puts a lot of perspective into how much goods are being moved within North Central Texas. And I want to talk about too, although trucking is our primary mode of freight transportation, it's important to us to also be looking at air cargo terminals, volume at which the goods movement is being, or the goods that they're bringing in. All of that needs to be considered within freight transportation planning. Go to the next slide. Perfect. Yeah, so these are some key facilities within North Texas region. Want to talk a little bit about the 3 that are centralized in Dallas. Obviously, we have FedEx, UPS, and Coca-Cola. I want to talk a little bit about the freight-oriented developments too. And so we discussed air cargo happening in the Alliance Airport. We do have a freight-oriented development happening right near that airport, as well as the DFW airport. So I want to point out that allows goods to be moved quicker and dispersed throughout our region at a quicker rate. It's important for us to be able to highlight these freight-oriented developments so that we can work on implementing better strategies for planning and creating better goods movement time throughout our region. I want to point out it's not mentioned on these bullet points, but our intermodal hubs. And so we have a lot of rail happening throughout our region as well. The 4 I want to highlight is the Union Pacific Railroad in Dallas and Mesquite. They have 2 major hubs happening in that area, as well as BNSF in Alliance, and then CPKC in Wiley. Go ahead and move the next slide. Perfect. So we have a couple priorities and a couple goals highlighted for the goods movement program at NCTCOG. And I won't go into depth about all of them, but I want to talk about a few that are our key priorities, our key highlights. And so you'll always hear us at NCTCOG talking about safety, mobility, accessibility throughout our region, as well as reducing any kind of air quality impacts happening with freight. And that's done in a variety of different ways. We're really lucky on the goods movement team to be able to collaborate with so many other teams at COG. That looks like a variety of different things, working with our aviation team, working with our air quality team to make sure that we're always implementing the best strategies. Next, we'll talk about community participation. We do this in a variety of different ways. It's important to us to be able to be in tune with the cities that we serve. And so a lot of times that looks like a phone call or an email from a city official that has highlighted maybe a specific freight focus issue that they've noticed in their region. We find it important to be able to go to these cities, meet with these officials and talk to them about what issues they have seen. And of course, I want to touch on technological advancements. As we all know, there's new technology, new freight, new transportation technology happening on a daily basis. And so it's important to us to be able to learn about these new technologies and implement them when necessary throughout our region. Next slide, please. All right, so I touched on it a little bit, but Freight North Texas. So this began as a document, a freight mobility plan. This was published in 2013. Since then has been updated in 2022. It highlighted a few studies, few recommended studies through our region. So those are the truck bottleneck study, a rail pathing study, air cargo, rail crossing. I want to be clear that these studies are a continuous and ongoing planning program and continuous study that we're doing in our region. Since then, since its publication, Freight North Texas has now begun a ongoing planning program. And the whole goal of it is to just improve the safety, mobility, and efficiency within our DFW region. Next slide, please. Perfect. So leading into that, these are some recent studies and activities I wanted to highlight. The first being our freight land use analysis. So similar to Freight North Texas, this was a document titled a Freight Land Use Compatibility Analysis. This was published and completed in 2022. Since then, similar to Freight North Texas, it created an ongoing planning program at NCTCOG with the entire goal to find compatible land uses that are being considered near freight developments. An example might be, we talked about the Alliance Intermodal Hub. We want to ensure that any planning project going around that area is being compatible so that there's not an increase in commute times for drivers, not an increase in idling for trucks. Next, we'll move to Mobility 2050. This is just our MTP. So it essentially just provides a blueprint for North Central Texas and what transportation needs to be looking like in North Central Texas. Our Freight Safety Initiative. So on a personal, this is one of my favorite programs and I'm beyond excited to begin in the next couple months. The entire goal of this is just to educate the public on freight safety. This is a program we do every other year. And so our last one was completed in 2023. The next one will begin in summer 2025. This is a really cool initiative. Again, it's one of my favorites. we partnered with Operation Lifesaver in 2023. What it looked like was essentially creating billboards to put around major roadways within the DFW region. And again, we worked with Operation Lifesaver to create kind of catchy slogans, if you will. For example, one was saying, big rigs need more time. They can't stop on a dime, with a picture of a truck. Again, it just allows the general public to be considering freight, big rigs, trucks on the roadways. Our corridor analysis, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but allowing for community participation is crucial on the goods movement team. So I've highlighted a few: Glen Rose, Hanley, and Lancaster. These are all places that we were in communication with city officials. They highlighted a specific freight-focused issue that they saw within their city. We actually went out to these, did site visits, and gave recommendations, write-ups, essentially, about ways to improve their specific issues highlighted. A rail crossing analysis. So what this looks like is essentially, in the city of Fort Worth, we looked at every at-grade rail crossing in the city of Fort Worth and analyzed them on a variety of different scales. So safety, what's the condition of the roadway, trains, how much trains are being moved through that region, the traffic, things like that. And we'll actually be beginning the city of Dallas crossing in the next couple months in late 2024. And finally, the Rail Crossing Elimination Program grant. We actually had the opportunity to submit for the city of Ennis for the grade separation project, and assisted with Bonds Ranch Road in Tarrant County, as well as Prairie Creek Road in the city of Dallas. Next slide, please. Perfect. Going right into that, the build grant. So this was something that we were awarded in 2020. This is being funded for the double tracking project for the TRE. You can see we're doing double tracking on Medical Market Center to Stemmons, and double tracking from Hanley to Precinct Line Road. Going hand in hand with that is the Regional Rail Information System, a ClearPath technology. I want you guys to think about this essentially as a communication hub happening on these shared rail networks, so both freight and passenger rail interactions. Goes hand in hand with our build grant, our NT Moves project. Again, I've touched on it a little bit ago, but technology is huge on our team, and making sure that we're implementing technology that is going to create a better DFW region, a safer DFW region, is huge to us. Next slide, please. All right, so our freight optimization system, which goes hand in hand with the technology aspect. I want to give a little bit of background into studies and activities that led into this freight optimization system technology. So in 2026, we completed the freight congestion and delay study. A huge recommendation from this study was to implement some sort of freight optimized traffic signal, or anything that would essentially improve connectivity between freight-oriented developments. We fast forward a couple years to 2020, 2021. We better refined what the concept of this signal optimization would look like, locations that we believe would benefit from this, and we worked with several of our regional partners on the implementation and signal optimization needed. 2021, 2022, a consultant was hired to move this concept forward. So a few goals that we've highlighted through this freight optimization system. Our entire goal is just to implement technology that allows for freight routes with fewer stops and less idling at red lights. Of course, reduced emissions, improved route efficiency, allowing goods to arrive faster. Of course, creation of better commute times, and then, of course, safety is always a top concern. So how it works. The one thing I really like about this is that there's no new hardware needing to be installed at any traffic signal, or no new hardware needing to be installed on vehicles. So this allows us to implement this technology on a larger scale throughout the DFW region. Essentially how it works is it's compatible with any traffic controller that's NCTCOG compliant. I know that sounds very fancy. The acronym essentially stands for National Transportation Communications for Intelligent Transportation Systems Protocol. I know that's kind of a mouthful. Throughout our research and implementation, we found that most traffic controlled signals are compliant with that, and so it works very well to be able to sync with our software. Essentially how it works is through GPS location, trucks it essentially syncs with the truck's existing automatic vehicle location system. or from the app that we actually created for this program. The whole goal is to track the location of the truck to provide added green time as needed to allow for the truck to safely proceed through a traffic signal. Some current project details. The app was recently released on both the Apple and Google stores, so it is available for download today. And then a few DFW cities and areas that are participating in this technology: Garland, Arlington, McKinney, Carrollton, Grand Prairie, and then most recently our DFW International Airport. Next slide, please. So I want to touch a little bit on current project issues, comments that we've gotten. First and foremost being concern for misuse of technology, and I think this is a really important one and an important discussion to have with the general public. As of right now, as I talked about it, is essentially an app that someone will download. And so a lot of cities, a lot of public members are concerned about who has access to this technology, how is it being implemented, is it in the correct hands, is it in the truck driver's hands, is it actually helping with commute times and less idling time. Second being, it's not including optimization for city traffic operations. And so as we talk a lot about at COG, every city that we serve is uniquely different. No traffic looks the exact same in one city. And so it's important for us to be able to implement technology that includes optimization for city traffic operations. When is the highest traffic rate? When is the lowest traffic rate? When can we implement better technology so that it can be more, serve on a larger scale? Of course, needing more involvement from participation, or needing more involvement and participation from local cities, needing more downloads on the app, and encouraging more cities to become involved in this technology. It's really important for us to be able to have cities understand how this technology is being used, how we can implement it in their cities, really put power back into the city's hands so that they can see exactly how this technology is being used. Next slide, please. So future approaches that we're wanting for this is essentially we're just needing to achieve greater integration for cities and traffic signal operators. As I talked about in the previous slide, we want cities to be more involved in the process. And we really want them to be able to implement or learn how we implemented this technology, how it's going to be implemented in the future, and monitor essentially how the technology is being used. As I talked about throughout this presentation, new technologies are emerging daily, and so it's important that we're able to continuously monitor new freight technologies, and that includes truck traffic technologies, into any planning process that we're a part of, and that ensures that DFW remains safe and efficient. Next slide, please. Perfect. So with that, I'll take any questions, any comments, any discussion.
I had a question on if you had any data on how freight congestion has been impacted once this is done.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's still, the technology is still being implemented. If you actually want to go back a few slides, there's one thing I want to point out. This one right here. So this is Public Coordinate, and I apologize, I should have mentioned this through that presentation. This is through the freightpriority.com. This is where you can find any information about the freight optimization system. This right here is a way that people from the public, it's open to the general public, can pinpoint an exact location and leave a comment. So this one is a location a little bit outside of Dallas, and it's talking about truck issues. I like this. I like it being able to have the general public comment and say that there's an increase in traffic. As if, to my knowledge, I have not heard of any general public person making a comment saying that they have seen an increase in traffic because of this technology, but it is still being implemented, so it's definitely a possibility. I unfortunately have not heard of that happening.
Does it have any way, I may have missed it, is there any tracking, on the platform where it's able to measure that data and see how maybe traffic times have been reduced?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am not sure of that, if it's able to track exactly how much it's been improved. That might be a question for the consultant that is implementing it, but that is a very good question.
I have a question, Dominic. Regarding that public forum that you're using to collect citizen comments,
Sure.
Are y'all running that, or is the consultant running that?
It's a both. So NCTCOG is running it in conjunction with the consultant, Kimley Horn.
And so will y'all have is that going to be a permanent fixture on your website, or are you just using it for this particular project?
So for freight priority, this will be continuous because this freight priority is specifically dedicated to the freight optimization system. So public coordinate will continuously stay on this website. Yes.
Thank you. And then regarding the freight safety initiative that you did in 2023 and you're going to do again in 2025,
Yes.
how do y'all measure success of all that marketing campaign? And does any of that align with Safe Streets and Roads for All?
Yes. So how it's tracked, there's a variety of ways. We work with our communications team to see the amount we've reached. And so, for example, one of the other ways that we have done this initiative or campaign for freight safety is working and running ads on Spotify. So if you guys are familiar, if you just have the free version of Spotify, you're able to, or you get ads basically after, I believe after 5 songs or so. And so we run ads talking about freight safety, and we're able to see just the amount that is reached, as well as on our website. We run a campaign, of course, and an extension of our website, and we're actually able to, through the communication team, track at the amount of clicks has happened in this website and the amount of people that it has essentially reached. And I apologize. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I apologize. I know you had 2 questions. I couldn't remember the second question you had.
Well, outside of the reach, are you able to track like behavior changes, or are there less accidents or less reports of freight issues? That's what I'm wondering, like the behavioral outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do track the average annual daily traffic, as well as essentially how passenger vehicles are interacting with freight. We haven't used it in the sense of the freight safety initiative. It's just something that we do. We do track the accidents on the roadways, if that makes sense. And something that kind of goes hand in hand with the safety initiative.
Okay. And my other question was, does this align with Safe Streets and Roads for All, since it's a safety initiative, the one about the freight safety initiative?
Yes, I believe it does. I believe it does align with that, yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a question about your optimization system. Are you using it to look at your growth and density over in past, and then trying to predict what growth and density for routes is going to be in the future?
I am so sorry. I heard the first part of the question. I didn't hear the last part. I apologize.
So are you using the freight optimization system to look at historical growth and traffic density, and then trying to predict where it's going to be in the future? So you can do predictive analysis on where the routes need to be improved.
Yes, absolutely. So, and that's the reason that we work so closely with Kimley-Horn and NCTCOG, is we're able to track traffic conditions and implement that into the technology and track that so that we can create better commute times in the future. Yes.
I mean, more than just commute time, but where a road needs bandwidth needs to be increased, more lanes, alternate routes developed, or something like that, not just the immediate green light issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is a huge thing too that we're working with Public Coordinate on, is to essentially see where, if I'm understanding your question, see where congestion is so that we can implement more of those freight optimization traffic signals in these areas that we see high areas of congestion, as well as working with our local cities that this technology has been implemented in future. And so we are working and trying to get more cities to participate in this technology, and that will assist in future goals of trying to create, if there's high traffic in an area, of trying to create better areas of that, if that makes sense.
Okay. How many years of data do you have in the optimization system?
As far as I know, and I would have to double check, but I believe that it has, I believe it's at least 2 years of data, and that's working with Public Coordinate and working with general community members and cities.
Okay. Thanks, I appreciate it. And one last question. You said
Sure.
it's based on the truck's GPS. Is it GPS only or Wi-Fi and cellular based as well?
So I believe the truck's automatic vehicle location, I believe it's just GPS. And then same thing with the app is called EcoDrive, and that works essentially with GPS location tracking.
Does it have any issues when you get downtown among the tall buildings?
That's a great question. As far as I know, no. But I have no idea about that one.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also wanted to know what the outreach looks like to let freight companies, trucking companies, know about this and know that they can like download the app and how it'll help them.
So what outreach has looked like, we're partnered with the consultant Kimley Horn, and they have done a lot of outreach. This specific technology, so doing presentations like this at freight advisory committees, is a way that we are getting this technology and kind of getting the word out there, as well as website information posting. Again, we work really closely with a lot of teams at COG, and so they're constantly talking about it. Conferences, we're really lucky that Kimley Horn is calling these companies, trying to get in communication with trucking companies, working with these local cities to try to get the word out there.
Okay. And just a bit of a technical question.
Sure.
It says it adds time to the green light as needed. Is that
Sure.
like determined by it adds 5 extra seconds, or is it really just determined by the actual location and keeps it green as long as the truck is moving through that intersection?
Yeah, so it is essentially using the vehicle location. If you're close to the light, it's essentially looking to see if you're close to the light, it's going to extend the light a little bit longer, if that makes sense.
Okay. And just one last question about the cost for Kimley Horn setting this all up and hosting it. Can you tell us a bit about what that looks like?
I apologize. I am not sure on the cost. I apologize. I'm not sure about the cost.
Any other questions? All right. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions, but thank you for the presentation. It is very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to flip to the last slide, I've put contact information of the entire goods movement team. So myself, our program manager, our principal transportation planner, and then my co-transportation planner. And so if anyone has any questions, or after the presentation or after the committee meeting is over, if you guys are, oh, hey, I have a question, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're happy to answer any kind of questions you have. As well as I've linked a couple times in this presentation the freightpriority.com website. This is essentially has a huge amount of information about the freight optimization system, but again, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on the goods movement team. We're happy to answer any kind of questions for y'all.
All right, great, thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much.
And let's see, our next presentation will be on the TxDOT 2024 rail plan presentation. I may have the wrong name. There's a Kevin Keller. Are you online?
I am. I'm here.
Wait, yeah, sorry. That was a previous speaker from last meeting, John, as far as that.
It's all right.
Take it away. Let me know when to change slide.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Keller. I'm with HDR. We are supporting Jessica Gray with TxDOT Rail Division, who's also on. We're supporting them with the update of the Texas Rail Plan, the 2024-2025 Rail Plan update. Next slide. Us rail people always talk about safety first. And so we always talk with a safety moment. I think everyone there in the room and on the call knows that TxDOT is very, very pro-safety, have a very robust safety program, be it rail or pedestrian or bicycle or automotive. So again, there's just some links for everyone if you're interested to see some of the TxDOT safety programs. Next slide. So a lot of people know TxDOT, but they don't know the rail division at TxDOT very well. The rail division was established in 2009. It's just what it sounds like. The Rail Division implements the rail-related policies, analyzes rail operations and infrastructure in the states, coordinates rail projects. They also actually manage a state-owned railroad, the Texas Orient Railroad. A lot of people don't know that. Then obviously they oversee all rail highway safety and inspection services, as well as being a liaison to the FRA. Next slide. So what's the rail plan? So the Texas Rail Plan is intended to be a one-stop source that defines what the rail system is today. When I say rail system, that is not only freight, it also includes passenger. And we'll talk about that here in a couple slides. But it also determines what needs are there for rail in the future. It integrates with other TxDOT plans, such as the freight plan, the long-range transportation plan, everything that goes with that. But the real key is what it does is it includes stakeholder input. Very important, right? From the very first plan in 2005 to what we're working on now, that outreach is a core goal. We always have the 5 goals that we really look at on these rail plans in terms of goals and objectives. Safety is always number 1. Asset management, though, is a close number 2. How is the state of good repair for rail assets in the state maintained and managed? Mobility and reliability. How can rail help reduce congestion, improve the whole rail system? How can the rail system provide that multimodal connectivity? And again, it's on the freight and the passenger sides. And just as important is how can rail make the state of Texas and all the shippers in the state more competitive on not just a regional basis, but on a global basis. Next slide. A rail plan isn't just something that we cooked up out of the blue. State rail plans are required by federal regulation. You can see the citation 49 CFR 266.15. And there are very strict requirements for Texas rail plans. They have to be based on a comprehensive, coordinated, and continuing planning process, and they have to be developed with an opportunity for participation by stakeholders, right? What we're doing here today is a part of that. The FAST Act of 2015 amended the statutory requirements for rail plans. Rail plans used to be due to be updated every 5 years, but since the FAST Act and continued by the IIJA and BIL, they're required every 4 years. So this is our every 4-year update that we're embarking on right now. Next slide. There's some other reasons why we do this. Number 1 is, as you all know, as freight practitioners, infrastructure doesn't stay still. It continuously evolves, it continuously improves, or in some cases, degrades. So these rail plan updates every 4 years really gives an opportunity for the state and the stakeholders in the state to look at any new guidance and priorities that come out, to really do an assessment of current and even future needs, and develop a list of those needs in the form of rail improvement projects. It really gives an opportunity for the Texas Rail Division to communicate to the public and other stakeholders about what's going on with rail in Texas. And it also presents us an opportunity to understand what is going on the industry side. What are their needs? And what are there any challenges they might have with rail infrastructure? So who are the stakeholders? It's you. It's everyone you can think of, right? It's just not the public advocacy organizations. It's not just private rail. It's not just public agencies. It's not just planning organizations like NCTCOG or CTCOG, but it's everybody, including the public. So we really try to make this as transparent as we can, and the messaging, try to make that as far-reaching as we can. Next slide. A couple of definitions. Like I said, the rail plans aren't just all about freight, it's also about passenger rail in the state. So as such, we have a couple of different definitions that we always try to make sure people understand. On the freight side, I think most of us understand there's different sizes or classifications of railroads. There's two Class 1 railroads, actually 3 Class 1 railroads in the state. There's BNSF, which I'm sitting in the hallowed halls of the BNSF corporate headquarters in Fort Worth right now. There's Union Pacific Railroad, and there's CPKC, obviously the merger of CP and Kansas City Southern. Intermodal means just what it sounds like. It's that transfer from one mode to another. Intercity and commuter rail are various designations for the passenger rail systems. Obviously, you live in the MPO. You know what the MPO is. And then, of course, you all know that Amtrak is a national passenger rail carrier. Next slide. So in the context of the rail plan, what we do is we try to adhere the best that we can in a prescriptive guidance that the Federal Railroad Administration came out with way back in September of 2013. It's basically a 6-chapter format, which covers the first is what is the role of rail in the states? Number 2, what's the existing rail system look like? And there's 3 parts, as you can see there. That third part is the really important part. Based on the current needs, based on trends and forecasts, what do we see in 2 time windows of rail service needs and opportunities? One being a short term in years 1 through 4, and a longer term in years 5 through 20. So it's a 20-year outlook is what we do in the rail plan update. Chapters 3 and chapters 4 build on what we come up with those needs and opportunities. Again, a lot of that is through interviews. A lot of that is through stakeholder outreach and communication, such that we get a pretty good need, especially that first short term, that years 1 through 4 of what needs to be done. That all gets rolled up into chapter 5, which is the state's rail service and investment program. That basically gives the states a really good window in terms of what needs to be done. And that could include track rehabilitation, new sidings for freight rail. It could be new intercity passenger rail corridors. It can be grade crossings, as you heard Savannah talk a little bit about with NCTCOG's rate plan. It could be a number of different things, but that all is rolled up into the state's rail service investment program. Then chapter 6 documents events like this, right? Coordination review. It really documents the participation, the outreach, the communications that's been done to create this rail plan update. Next slide. A little bit about passenger rail. I know y'all are freight rail, but passenger rail is just as much a part of rail infrastructure in a state as freight rail. There's existing Amtrak corridors going through the state. You can see them there. Next slide. But something new, and this is a new element to this new rail plan update, is what's called a corridor identification and development program. What the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act did, the IIJA and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the BIL, did was basically have a whole bunch of money allocated, $66 billion, billion with a B, for rail. A lot of that was in 2 new programs for passenger rail. One is CID. Texas has several corridors that actually received awards. You can see them there. Everything from the Texas Triangle to the Heartland Flyer extension up to Newton, Kansas, the I-20 corridor passenger rail. You can see them there. Next slide. What the state, specifically TxDOT, got awarded was 2 of the legs of what we call the Texas Triangle, right? Those rail lines between Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex. We got awarded 2 of the 3. To be honest, and Jessica can bear this out, we probably should have gotten the 3rd leg as well, but there were some administrative challenges and it just didn't get done. But we're currently working on the Dallas-Fort Worth to Houston leg and the San Antonio to Houston leg. That CID program is a companion to what's called the Long Distance Service Study. Amtrak, independent of the CID program, had its own study on these long distance routes. And let me just explain what that means. A long distance route is a passenger rail corridor that's over 750 miles in length. That's called long distance. If it's shorter than 750 miles, that's called a state-supported service. So you can see there's both sides of it. This slide shows those long distance corridors, DFW to Miami, right? El Paso to Billings, DFW New York, right? Those are those long distance Amtrak corridors, such as the Cardinal or the Sunset Limited. So those types of corridors. Next slide. So again, I know it's not so much passenger rail, but freight that obviously Freight Advisory is interested in. But I think you all know Texas has a very robust freight rail network. And by the way, those passenger rail corridors that you just saw on the previous slides, guess what? Those all run on the host freight railroad infrastructure. So the freight rail network in the state is very, very robust. So in this rail plan update, what have we heard? We've already had a couple of public meetings. You can see some of the top themes there, right? Obviously, safety is always number one. Funding is always a concern. We do a chokes and bottlenecks analysis. What can we do to expand connectivity? And again, I showed you how it integrates with some of the other plans, right? Like the Connecting Texas 2050 plan, the statewide multimodal transit plan. It all becomes one nested set of documents, right, that explain what are those needs for the future in the state. Next slide. So when we go through some of those, what we've heard, safety, you see some of the bullets under safety, resiliency and emergency response corridor and response times is a very important issue that we hear over and over. Funding, no surprise to any of you, I'm sure, is always an interesting finding from our meetings. Reliability, right? How are we going to address congestion and shorter and more efficient travel times? Bottlenecks, right? There's a lot of short lines in the state besides the class ones that I mentioned. A lot of those short line railroads have structures and track that need to be updated with the heavier rail cars that they carry. So anyway, that's one of them that we talk about a lot. We talk about modernization. Positive train control was implemented on the freight rail lines a year ago. They're all pretty much now interconnected. What other technology is there out there to talk about? Alternative fuel supplies. As we get farther and farther away from diesel as the primary fuel, and that's going to happen whether we want it or not, what other sources are out there? Is it biofuels? Is it a biodiesel? Is it hydrogen? Is it battery electric locomotives? What else is out there in terms of technology? Economic development, I think that speaks for itself. And that expanded connectivity, it's that multimodal service, right? It's not just about passenger rail, which you see a lot of those bullets there are, but it can also be for freight rail. What new shippers are coming into the state that require rail service? So it's very important that we focus on that. Next slide. You can see our schedule there. You can see right where we are. We're going into fall of 2024. We will continue to have public outreach just like this today. But we're really shooting to have a draft of the updated Texas Rail Plan towards the end of this year. We're going to have probably the final, just the first part of 2025. So, and the reason that lag is we really want to make sure that we get as much input from the stakeholders as we can. To me, that's one of the most critical elements of the update. Next slide. So how can you stay informed? We have a lot of different ways. If you look at the QR code, you can click on the QR code, and that will take you to the rail plan at TxDOT.gov website. You can leave comments there. You can contact the rail division. You can see the phone number there and the website address. You can just go to TxDOT.gov and search for Texas Rail Plan. Or you can actually hard copy mail to TxDOT Rail Division and leave your comments. Again, this is the most important thing about an update to a rail plan is getting your input, right? Can't have an update unless we have everybody's input into it. So with that, I want to thank you. This outreach will keep going on for some time. And again, we really thank you for this opportunity to give you a presentation on this update. So just let us know what we can do to get your input recorded. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a few questions. Do you have any workshops coming up soon?
Hi, yes, this is Jessica with TxDOT. So we are looking at having another stakeholder workshop opportunity. We're looking at December for that. We're still currently in the planning process for that. So we will reach out shortly once we've locked down that date. The plan is for that to be virtual so that you would be able to attend. We also, as part of that, will have another opportunity for you to provide comments to us about any projects that you know that are going on in the area that you want to make sure that we are aware of. That will be open for a time frame around the scheduled date of that workshop. So, there'll be another couple of days where you'll be able to provide that input. But as Kevin said, really, these next couple months is about the outreach and hearing back from you guys, and others about what we need to include in the plan. So yes, stay tuned. We'll be sending out additional information about upcoming workshop. And on that website, there's also a place where you can subscribe to the website for additional announcements.
Thanks. And my last question is just about part of the rail plan, the Rail Service and Investment Program, number 5. So is that going to outline like specific maybe funding categories for the state? Will any money funnel down to local government? Or is it just going to be, how much the state would need to spend on certain, projects that they would do the work themselves?
Yeah, it doesn't really commit to funding sources for those projects, but what it does do is it will list the priority grade crossing improvement or separation projects, the new track that we've heard from shippers and from the rail carriers. Ports, obviously, always are expanding their intermodal, their on-dock rail yards. So it'll have a list of those short-term and long-term projects that we've identified through processes like this. It doesn't necessarily identify a funding stream for any of those, but it does give an idea what their cost is and what the timing is for those projects.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, and we could still go through some of our other discussion items, our usual one about just local KTMPO freight topics. So this is open to anybody on the committee to discuss new freight needs that come up, issues, problem areas, or maybe ideas for actions or steps that the committee could take or that staff could take to address those needs.
You're familiar with what code is doing with that system over there. It's not really new. They have another meeting, another short one. I want to say.
Okay. Any input, anyone online?
I couldn't really understand what you were saying, Keith.
Oh, well, we're doing those state highway 9 minutes.
Okay.
Conference code it's had 2 meetings with 2 different short line providers about establishing an intermodal facility on leased land. They have another one coming up in November. They're going to sit down and talk to them about.
I think on our end for staff, we'll look more at the freight optimization system. And I know we worked with Killeen-Temple, or KTMPO's worked with Killeen-Temple before. Maybe seeing if there's any funding for the MPO, developing something like that for our own region, or possibly freight study or something like that. Because unlike some of our other boards who don't currently have any freight plan, there's just truck parking study we had from a few years back.
Yeah.
So it'd be helpful, I think, to have a tool like this, the app, and something that can directly impact freight, or even if it's not that, maybe just an actual plan like some of these other ones that they did in NCTCOG.
Like that. That they use heat maps, they can see where and play it over time. You can see where the route growth is.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if they've ever gone back to the distribution center and said, hey, we recommend you modify your delivery times to this schedule because your drivers will have less traffic.
Yeah, I think that's some way that we could actually use that. Like if we have some similar version of that, actually taking the data from it and going to the freight companies. And then,
The minute it just lasts for a couple of minutes, that's a short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution.
Yeah.
How do you improve the network? Or do you need a dedicated truck line?
yeah, and that's where we could possibly do our own freight congestion study. Something
Yeah.
similar.
Is TxDOT saying this about 281?
Not as far as I know.
There was
What about 281?
a proposal, there was discussion on it. One of the commissioners for TxDOT would like to see it get developed into an alternate interstate.
I don't think it's gonna be an
To
alternate.
take truck traffic off of 35, because you can't keep widening 35 or get one. We're going out of here already. So you could put some truck traffic.
They're not gonna make it an interstate, but there's widening, Waco District is widening 281.
Yeah, they're doing almost all the way down.
Four-lane divided, I think that's all it would be, is widening to divide it and bypassing, creating bypasses for free travel to optimize it.
Don't tell Commissioner Duke that. He's the one, he's the one that says,
I mean,
I
that's,
think he lives in San Angelo. He's the
that's
one that wants
from
it.
TxDOT.
I know. He's the one that wants to become another interstate.
It's not designated, I know that.
No, it's not. They're talking about making it one, not what it is now, what it can be. If you continue importing from Mexico, we're going to stop that.
I don't think
Truck
you need to
traffic is
designate an
huge.
interstate to make it a better freight route. I think you could, what they're doing right now by widening it, and it's long-term going to help some.
It'll help.
May not be something that we would see,
No,
but it would
it's
make
years down the road.
sense.
if
It
they're
would
gonna do
make
that.
sense.
Because it goes all the way from the border past Fort Worth.
All right. Any other comments or input? All right. Item 7, public comment. Anita, you can go ahead and talk
Thank
about
you.
this.
We had quite a few public comments, and it has to do with the proposed amendments to the FY 25-28 and the 2050 NTP project listing. What we found out when we were out in the public is that as individuals, we asked them to complete the survey. They were more interested in what was the projects happening in their area, or how could they comment on street improvement in their area. So we added that to our proposed amendment survey, and then we took out those comments and rolled them into our KTMPO general comments. So we had a total of, I think, 42 comments. 14 were related to safety, 2 were bike pedestrian, 5 were public transit, and 2 were road highway by topic. Can you go to the next screen, please? And 1 was by phone. The one by phone actually had to do with a true general comment. There was a double fatality over on Loop 363. And so that individual wanted to know what type of transportation plans were for that particular road, and when they were coming when it was going to be led. And so we talked a little bit about that project, and I also referred that citizen over to TxDOT they wanted to look at the map, the road map. So that was really a good conversation.
Was that the head-on collision, or was that the single vehicle? On 360.
I think it was the head-on, where it was 2 fatalities.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I wasn't sure. That's why.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, but he did, like, the fatality happened, and the phone call came in the next day.
Yeah.
And the remainders of those were from the online survey. Next slide, please. And the different comments, City of Harper Heights had a majority of comments, and Nolanville, the jurisdictions, Hill Country Transit District, several comments about the new metro services.
Microtransit.
Sorry, thank you, microtransit services. I'm doing this without my notes, sorry.
That's okay.
About the microtransit services. And I was really very pleased with Hill Country Transit District. I received those questions, and those people were really trying to get to where they needed to go. And the HOP, they contacted them and got them scheduled and were able to meet their needs. So that was real cool. That's it on the public comments. Any questions?
All right, we have all 28 public comments in the packet. You can see those and read those. Our next agenda item is staff updates. So upcoming board meetings for December and January, all for KTMPO. As far as a lot of legislative updates, so these are all federal bills I'm going to talk about here. So HR 5840, this was passed from the Homeland Security Committee. It's the Transportation Security Screening Modernization Act. So basically what it does is harmonize federal security measures and requirements for freight carriers whenever they go through ports or if they're carrying hazardous materials, and just trying to avoid redundancies. HR 9028 and S 4796 are just the House and Senate version of the THUD bills. This is Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. So it's the HUD appropriations and Department of Transportation stuff. So some of the provisions in these bills include $200 million, which would be appropriated for truck parking through discretionary highway funding, reversing this new independent contractor rule, so it allows more flexibility in determining if a trucking company is working as a contractor or not. Directing the Federal Motor Carrier Administration to work with state, local, and private stakeholders for guidelines on towing and regulating that. It would also authorize $100 million for 25 to 29 for a Homeland Security task force on supply chain fraud and theft. So, any type of theft and hijacking stuff that affect rail, motor carrier, any freight intermodal systems. And then removing several regulations like those for safe driver apprenticeship pilot program, ending the joint employer rule. HR 8996 would provide $100 million for a grant program. So this would be for telematics systems that monitor rail cars, and it would also increase funding for one of the grant programs that's ongoing right now. Over the past few years, it's been open, the Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant Program. So it would bump up its funding to $1.5 billion annually. And then also create a close call reporting system on railroads. So it's just stuff about the Ask Rail application for first responders when there's an accident with a train. As far as open grants, the Texas Natural Gas Vehicle Grant Program through TCEQ. So has $25 million total dedicated for grant funding for retrofitting or replacing heavy and medium duty vehicles that operate at least 75% of the time in a clean transportation zone county. The only one of these counties in our region is Bell County. So basically, if you have a vehicle for trucking or anything that carries freight that spends 75% of its time within Bell County, you'd be eligible to be replaced or retrofitted with natural gas or with any type of alternative fuel. Deadline for that is next year. And then lastly, for grants, the State Infrastructure Bank not a grant, but financing. So it's loans below market rate just for constructing, maintaining, or financing transportation projects. This is ongoing, so every last Monday of each month, you can submit an application for whatever project, transportation infrastructure. But like I said, it's a loan, no grant funding, and that. And then lastly, this is just something useful document from the Department of Transportation called Saving Lives with Connectivity, Plan to Accelerate Vehicle to Everything Deployment. So this is a plan, the link in your packet, you can click on that and it'll take you to it. So it's just a framework with guidelines for transportation stakeholders on implementing technology that improves safety. It's just called Vehicle to Everything. It's just any technology that interacts with the vehicle and then anything else that's part of the road infrastructure, just to communicate and collect information and make it be able to react to different stimuli better. And that is it for the staff update. Any questions?
I was going to do a B2X was.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add for the House and Senate bill for the appropriations that, of course, no movement on that will happen until after the election. And then they have until December of the continuing resolution to get some version of that passed, and hopefully contains most of those parts of it. Yeah, that's just a good quality report. And yeah, last part is just member comments. If there's anything from anyone on the committee. Right. If not, then that is the end. And then our next meeting should be in April, on the 4th Tuesday of April. So a calendar invite will be sent out for that. And we'll be approving the minutes for this past April. So, and this meeting. So yes, thank you everyone.